Get a hand first, Mark?
2-5, no limit game, 9-handed. It's a home game.
Okay.
Effective stack sizes are about 1,000 or so.
Can I ask you what area of the country this is?
Yeah, Kentucky.
Oh, interesting. Mm-hmm. They don't have any card rooms in Kentucky, right? Is that right?
No, not really. We'd have to go up to Indiana or Ohio.
The Jack, Cincinnati, all that stuff, right? Yep. Okay. Mm-hmm. Okay.
So we got a little home game. 9-handed, 2-5, effective stacks are about 1,000. I'm in the small blind with ace 10 of spades. Folds around to MP2, who opens for $20. And standard open in this game is about 20, 25 usually. Sometimes it gets a little crazy, but that's pretty standard for this game. Folds around to the button, who is one of the nittiest players at the table. So he calls.
Okay.
I didn't realize this at the time, but I started going through some content here on your site, and according to the charts, it's kind of a 50-50 3-bet with my hand in the small blind, but I just flat, so I just call there for 20.
Yeah, but what's the factor here that makes you want to 3-bet this more?
Well, one of the reasons that I didn't was simply because the player in MP2 is just a maniac, and I didn't want to play a huge pot bloated with him out of position. Really, I mean, I probably could have got it heads up, but he just, if he sees any weakness at all, he's just going to blast. And it's not a spot I really want to get in.
If he's a maniac and he's playing too many hands, this is a fine sort of 3-bet. What I'm getting at is that normally, if you have a hand that sometimes call, sometimes 3-bet. You definitely want to lean towards 3-bet when you've got dead money out there. I'm talking specifically about the button. I don't know what the button's profile is, but it's just an overlay that you're getting,
Squeeze. Gotcha. Yeah, and you're right, because I encouraged the big blind rather to come along, so he ended up calling for 20. So we go 4 ways to the flop.
Now, where I might flat here, people say like where I might over flat specifically here in the small blind, because this probably, I mean, you are 200 big blinds deep, but again, the 4x open tends to make it a little more shallow. It's not crazy like, playing 1-2 at Texas like I do, or 1-3 at Texas and playing, open at 15. But where I think ace 10 suited is too good not to 3-bet. But I might overcall if I was probably very deep. Maybe I thought the players were decent that had position on me, and I had a hand like maybe some of my worst suited aces. Ace 7, ace 8, ace 6, because something I always get that with people. Would you ever call? Do you ever VPIP as a call in the small blind? And I said sometimes, not often, but sometimes. And I think at those points, I might do that. Although on the flip side, though, if the button is just a guy that VPIPs too wide, and then you can get through MP2 because he's opening too wide, it's almost always a profitable 3-bet, no matter how deep you are, because then you're going to be dealing with a double flat range if the button comes in, which is a very collapsed range, and you can put a lot of pressure on him. And as I've said in a lot of my content, they don't recognize that they actually have to defend down more post-flop, the double flatters. So you call. What does the big blind do?
He calls as well.
Okay. So 4 ways?
Yeah, 4 ways to the flop, so we got $80 or so in the pot. Flop is queen of diamonds, 9 of spades, 4 of spades.
So nut flush draw.
Correct. Yep, nut flush draw, 1 over.
Yep.
And I just kind of, I guess some people call it playing in flow. I just check. Big blind checks, and you're just fully expecting the MP2 to blast off here, and he c-bets for 50. Button calls 50, which is a little surprising. And
why is that surprising?
Because I know he probably has a pretty big hand for him to. I mean, like I said, he's one of the nittiest players at the table, and I don't know. If he's in the hand, I need to be worried about. Okay, did he flop a set of 4s? Is he just trying to string people along here? That's why he's not raising. So there's a lot of things going through my head. After he calls, so I kind of, I don't know. I just called there, and then big blind calls as well. So there's still 4 ways.
So hero calls in the small blind. So you're saying that the button is known to be nitty, could be slow playing something, but probably has a queen plus here, is what you're saying.
Yeah, he could, or something like maybe Jack 10, but I have a 10, so I have 1 blocker, so that makes it less likely. But yeah, who knows?
Also, too, when you take a look at like what other hands the button could have, he might have a smaller flush draw here, which you don't want that hand out, right? You don't want that to get that hand out.
The turn is an interesting card. It's the queen of spades. Again, I check here, and maybe I shouldn't have, but I did. Big blind checks.
So you turn a flush here, but the top card pairs, right?
Correct, yeah. Not flush on a paired board. Yep.
So should you lead here? Should you check? I think this is going to get checked through a lot here. And it's really hard to, come up with these types of scenarios four ways when you're taking a look at computers, because usually when you make a flush from out of position, there isn't a lead. You do a fair amount of leading out of the blind when sort of the middle card pairs or a lot of straightening cards come in that can give you two pair. For whatever reason, I guess maybe to protect your checking range, you don't do that much when the flush card comes. But that's all out the window. It's four ways. I mean, there's four ways on the turn. It's live poker. Everybody called. The problem I have with checking here is I don't even know if a queen is going to bet off, whereas a queen will call. You don't have to worry about being overflushed here. And
Right.
like that nitty button very well might check through with like king, queen, or queen, jack here, right? With the guys up front checking to him when the spade comes in.
He could, but I mean, and you can never be 100% sure, but I was fairly certain no matter what card hits that MP2 is going to bet no matter what. And if the button calls, I know that I could potentially be in trouble. But if I lead out, then I feel like I'm just kind of, I don't know if you call it donk betting or whatever, but I just kind of feel like I could be lighting it on fire if he's full at this point. And I kind of want to use MP2 in a way knowing that he's probably going to bet, see what the button does, and then kind of reevaluate after that.
So you're actually concerned about being beaten by the button here, like a lot?
I don't know a lot, but I guess I just tread cautiously. And like I said in the email, I don't know if this is me. I hate to, I don't want to say playing scared, but like if I don't know, I never want to get in a spot where action's on me first, no matter what. I make a play, I ended up being behind, and I feel like I'm just lighting money on fire. You know what I'm saying? Like I'm checking, but I'm not necessarily folding my hand, so I can still I'm still in the pot until we kind of see what happens with the button. Now for him to call 50 on the flop, like I said, that something's just going through my head. Something's just not right here, and I'm kind of hoping that one of them at least has a queen at this point.
Well, I mean, there's less obviously queen X that comes out here, but my sort of takeaway or the way that I would look at this is like I would just almost play like a bet fold game with the button, in the sense that I would be doing a lot of leading here because I think it's going to get checked through a lot. Let's say that we bet out and only the button called, and then we're like, and then like the river's a brick. We can bet and get called by smaller flushes and then fold to a raise, knowing that the guy's only going to fold the full house. I mean, that's how I would approach these spots against like these types of players, especially with the nut flush. But
Gotcha.
It goes check. So turn check, you check. MP2 bets 150.
Correct.
Even though he's a maniac, though, I mean, it's just like wow, like he's got to be really way out to lunch to have nothing here to bet into three people when the spade and the queen pairs here.
Right. Exactly. So I'm it's hard to put him on a hand ever really, but we played some interesting pots together over time, but I'm thinking he probably at least has a queen at this point. Right. So I'm feeling decent about that. I'm not so worried about him being full as I am one of the other players, but anyway, so he bets 150. Button folds. So that made me feel good. He's out of the way.
Okay.
And so now it's back on me. And I don't know why, but I just called instead of raising here.
Yeah, I mean, so you guys both started with 1,000, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I mean, it would be very interesting if the button called again, because I can almost, which is kind of what I thought for some reason was going to happen, because at that point you could make a case where you might just call to play it defensively and just be like, I don't know what the fuck is going on, but I got a bad feeling here. With your background with the button, right? With your background with the button, if the button flatted again here, MP2 bet, and the button flatted again, and you got a guy behind you still too, right? The big blind overcalled the flop. I might call again and be like, what's going on here? You know? With that being said, you guys aren't super deep, but now that the button's folded, here's the thing. And I know you said that you're a new Crush Live Poker subscriber too. So, I'm pointing to, a thing that I did a couple months ago, which now is very easily accessible in the coursework. And even if you're not a CLP sub, you can actually look at the coursework. You can't access the content, but if you go into courses over at Crush Live Poker and then go to Crushing Live No Limit 101, Small Stakes Exploit Guide is one of the modules now. And one of the small stakes exploits is not giving or not taking the betting lead from your opponent in a situation like this. Really, the exploit is not giving up the betting lead. You don't have the betting lead, but I don't want to call here and then expect the MP2 to bet again on a brick when he might just check back a queen or a smaller flush, thinking what's going on, whereas he will call off with all of those hands as well. And also call, by the way, with a queen here too, thinking he's going to like fill up. So if you do just call here, it looks like the pot is like 580 because he's betting 150 into 280. So it's like 580.
That's right.
And it's like you've got like 800 or maybe 700 left. So I don't know what your plan is. Let me ask you this question. If you call and the other guy folds and the river is a brick, a deuce, what is your plan?
Well, honestly, I probably would have just check jammed over whatever he bet or checking, hoping he jams. I guess I should just lead at that point if it's a brick. But I kind of made up my mind. If there's no queen or nine on the river, like there's no way I'm getting out of the hand. And if it goes check, check, it goes check, check. But I just, from my history with this MP2 guy, he's going to bet 99% of the time if you check to him. I mean,
do you think he's really going to bet a queen here if the river's like a red deuce?
Oh, 100%. With him, knowing him, yes.
I mean, the spade has come on the turn, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, that's just a big sort of if. And
he's done some weird, like we had about 30 minutes before this hand, on an ace high board, he bets all three streets, and I made a pretty loose call, with ace jack, and it was good. I mean, he had a king. He just does some crazy shit. So
yeah, I mean, that's a huge sort of deviation. I think sometimes people take maniacal too far when they see people play like maniacal sort of crazy pre, but even if he has some of that in him, I'm still want to get the maximum value, which would make me just want to raise. You can just make it like 400 here. He's never going to fold.
And then the river is the 9 of diamonds.
So by the way, the pot is 580.
Yeah, 580. Mm-hmm.
So the river's the 9 of diamonds. Ugh.
Yeah.
So now it double pairs and you lose to a queen, right?
Correct. Queen or 9. Yeah. Yep. Yeah, so it's pretty gross. So I wasn't really sure what to do, and I figure no matter what I bet, if I try to make us, I guess I missed my opportunity for any sort of value bet at this point, right? So I ended up just checking, and he bets 500 into 580.
Well, I mean, you have to check the river as played. There really is no sense in betting here whatsoever, because you don't have anything that he's going to call with that's worse, and you don't give him the opportunity to bluff, right? Like you said, he's a maniac, so it makes no sense to bet now. Now that right, and he bets 500.
Yeah, he bets 500 into 580, and so I'm sitting there trying to figure this out, and it's like it's very difficult to put him on a hand. Does he do this with some kind of crazy ace high hand? But I have an ace in my hand. Did he have does he actually have a queen, or could he have done some crazy shit with a 9 and he still got there? You know what I mean? Like I'm losing to feel like so many hands. And so I'm trying to do the pot odds thing. I guess I'm getting
you're getting about 2 to 1. Well, let's just look at this. So do we agree that he's probably not doing this with a flush on a double paired board at least?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. There's no way he has a flush. He's either full or he has air, in my opinion. Yeah.
Right. And then he bet the turn though, and now he's continuing to bet the river.
Yeah, he bets all three streets.
I don't know if he's betting a 9 on the turn though either. I think that's kind of the same thing that I was talking about before. I mean, maybe he continues to bet a queen, but I don't know if he bets a 9. It's just more of a queen beats you now.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, it sucks in the sense. I mean, if the guy, he'd have to be, if he's a maniac, I could maybe get on board with calling here, but it would be one elaborate bluff. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It would be one elaborate
for
bluff.
sure. Yeah. I mean, and like I said, he was still, I feel like, a little bit tilted from that other hand where he thought he was going to push me off the hand. Then I called him with ace jack and, an ace high board, and he had a king. There's king on board too for second pair. So anyway, I'm just trying to figure out, like, okay, is he trying to get back at me? I knew he had reloaded, so he's not on his first buy-in. I know how he typically does some crazy stuff when he plays. So all this stuff's running through my head, and I'm trying to do the pot odds thing. It's like, all right, well, I'm getting a little better, I guess, than 2 to 1. So if I'm understanding part of the coursework right here, if I do 1 over 2 plus 1, that means I need about 33% equity or so to call, maybe a little bit less than that because I'm getting a little better than 2 to 1. So I guess the question I have to ask myself is how often am I good here, right?
Right. Well, that's the pot odds math, right?
Okay.
I don't know if I would use the term equity, even though you're technically correct, because I think that can kind of confuse things a little bit because the equity is done.
Okay.
You just need to be good here 1 out of 3 times, right? Because you're getting 2 to 1 in pot odds, so 33% of the time.
Mm-hmm.
I guess you could say that equates to equity, but I think that's a little bit of a confusion because I think equity should be sort of looked at like in previous streets.
Gotcha.
And then you have an MDF scenario too, which people sometimes will confuse and conflate here, where he's basically betting the size of the pot, which means that he's giving himself 1 to 1, where he needs to get you to fold. I mean, it's a little bit less than this because it's not quite the size of the pot where he needs to get you to fold like 50% of the time. So a counter to that is like you need to call with 50% of your hands. That's an MDF, situation. I don't know if I would look at this like MDF in this particular spot, but I can't give you an answer here in the sense if he was really, really maniacal and just did some shit, I might throw in the call. If it was anybody that was half normal, it's very, very difficult for me to find a bluff here when you have ace 10 of spades and somebody that's even half normal has bet flop turn and river now.
Yeah, I know. It's crazy. Anybody else, it's like an automatic fold, but I went deep into the tank and I thought about it for a minute or so, a minute and a half. And finally I just folded. And sure enough, he flipped up his hand and he showed 7 of hearts, 4 diamonds. Crazy, right?
7 of hearts, 4 diamonds. Well, then I'm not going to fold next time. I mean, it's just crazy.
I mean, yeah, it's nuts. And so wasn't really sure what to do there, but it ultimately made the fold. Yeah, like I said, he plays with us probably once every 2-3 months and just does some crazy stuff. I mean, we played some huge pots together over time, and you just really never know with him. It's really hard to put him on a hand.
Well, that is well, I mean, then you got to make the adjustment and just call down much, much lighter, right? Much lighter. And then it's possible what you were saying on the turn might be the best way to play against the guy, but that's a special type of maniac. If you like what you've seen here, please hit the subscribe button. And for more training videos like this, head over to crushlivepoker.com and you can use the coupon code YTA500 to get the first 30 days for free.